Hey, Mama. Welcome back to the Mom Collective podcast. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Ari, and we are just two moms navigating motherhood.
That is us. And today, I literally just had a glitch in the Matrix. So if you guys are listening to that, it's like my whole body just paused. It like froze in midair and it was like, and nothing came out. Maybe it was like, I don't know, some empty space that was just like in my head. That is motherhood, mom brain. I don't even like to, honestly, I'm going to get honest here. I sometimes feel I use that as an excuse. Do you? Mom brain.
I feel like it's easy to use it as a crutch. Same thing we just talked about with like teething before we started podcasting. We're like, my baby's teething. But I do think mom brain is real. However, we're going to solve that issue on my end at least, because I am going to get some treatment by Nexus, and we are going to clear this mama's mom brain, aka brain fog, work on my hormones, and do everything else. So,
guys, we have this amazing, this is a plug that's not paid. It's just because we got a really cool opportunity. And if you're in Orange County, you probably have seen it at the walks, but if you haven't been to one of our walks, I'm going to now plug, go to momwalkcollective.com, go to our walk finder, type in your zip code, find a walk near you, bada bing, bada boo. One of our hearts at the collective is to get our walks sponsored by local companies, national companies, to really gift every mom that shows up. Doesn't happen all the time. We try to just do it as much as we can. But there is this doctor here in Orange County. His name is Dr. Daniel. He owns a chiropractic office called Nexus, and they are sponsoring some of our Orange County walks. And the way, and I'll let Ari explain it because she just saw him, the way he describes his care versus traditional, what you think of cracking and popping chiropractic, is mind-blowing. And I actually have a lot of friends who've seen him and had back pain for years, or brain fog for years, or other random issues, and started going to him. And within a month, they're like, that just blew my mind. I don't even know how he did that, but I feel so much better. So Ari, you can kind of explain it. I know this may sound like a plug, but this is just because we're actually in awe of this resource that we found. But you just went and saw him. So what was it like?
Yeah. So I just had my assessment today, and the whole family went, me, Ian, and the babies.
Oh, I didn't
First
know
of
that.
all, fantastic service. The babies were able to like crawl around, play whatever they wanted to do in the appointment. Ian got to listen in because both of us like kind of nerd out on the science behind everything. And I've had like pretty much everything under the sun of like body treatments, whether that's massage, chiropractic work, acupuncture, cupping. I use the Theragun, whatever it is. And I've had this underlying pain in my shoulder for a while. And so this past couple of years, I've heard that you store trauma in your muscles. And Dr. Daniel explained that in a different way, but like so resonating with me in the sense that like, if you have like an underlying pain for years, that's not just going to go away with like continuous massage work. Like you have to then, like your brain has gotten stuck in this fight or flight mode, and you can't release that muscle. Like it is just firing because it's in constant stress. And so his version, or the way he practices chiropractic care, is really trying to heal the brain and try to relieve the brain from being under flight or flight so it can go into that restorative mode. And so that was just amazing. Ian left and he was like, that was the best description of chiropractic care I have ever heard. And I might totally be butchering it, So go see him or go to his TikTok. We'll put it in there in the show notes because like it's pretty incredible what he can do. And so I'm excited for my my next appointments.
I mean, it makes so much sense. He actually gave access to anyone who's a part of the collective. So if you're listening, you're a part of the collective. Special podcast that he released for us moms to just give us more understanding and more resources. So we're going to put it in the show notes for you guys. But when I had originally seen him living in the area, I had heard about him years ago, and years ago we went. Unfortunately, at the time, financially, I couldn't do his prescribed treatment. But he had scanned to figure out the fight or flight that my body was in, and had never met him before in my life. And on my scan pulls up that I had miscarriages. And he goes, "Oh, it's so sorry to hear that you've had some miscarriages." And I was like, "What? How did you know that?" And he saw that my body held on to that trauma and that my body was still fight or flight for it. So one of the things that's really cool about his practice is if you see him while you're pregnant, he will care for your kids for their first year of life for free. Because he's incredible. Like, there's trauma as you come out of the birth canal, or if it's through C-section or whatever. And so his whole thing is like, let's set up the next generation really well. Anywho, Dr. Daniel's great.
Shout out Dr. Daniel and Dr. Taylor, who has joined his practice.
Yes, it's so cool. But today we're actually going to talk about redefining relationships after baby, meaning how do you have healthy relationships within marriage, within friendship, within family after you have a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And Ari brought this idea to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a good topic, because I can think of this one story. And then Ari, I'd love to hear kind of where you'd go with it. But when I was married to my ex-husband, his friends, he's 4 years older than me, and his friends, when we met, already all had kids. So he was the last one out of his friends to have kids. And his either had one kid or multiples. So that was like their life. And when we were dating, his friends' wives asked me to hang out, and they were talking all about everything motherhood because that was their reality. Mm-hmm. And they're talking about, oh, my son hasn't pooped in a week. And, oh, have you heard of a basal thermometer and this and that? And I remember coming home to see, me and my husband didn't live together, but like coming home from that time. And then the next time I spoke to him was like, that was the worst thing I've ever been to in my life. I'm like, I do not care that the fact that your kid has not pooped in a week, that literally doesn't resonate in my life at all. And at that moment, I just made this judgment of like, I have nothing in common with these women besides the fact that their husbands are my husband's best friends. Like, it's great. Now, as a mom, my friends go, oh, what's up? And I go, oh, Lincoln threw up on me this morning, but like things are good. Do they care? No. So this topic is so relevant because there is such a dynamic shift, because not only do you give birth to a new human, but I think you give birth to a new part of yourself. Mm-hmm. And within giving birth to a new part of yourself, you have to assess how can that version of you, along with the old version of you, still maintain your relationships well. How do you communicate it? How do you process it? The whole shebang. So, Ari, I would love to start in kind of partner. How do you, now being a mother, still maintain your relationship as a wife?
That's such a good one. So Ian and I prepped before we had kids. Like we knew going into having kids that things were going to be different. And what I mean by that is like, you're exhausted. You are like, your life is now not just about yourself and serving your needs and serving your partner's needs. Now you have 2 little babies in my case, not everybody has two little babies right away, that you are giving your life to. And so, plus, both of us coming from divorced homes, we wanted to ensure that, like, what could we do to prepare so that we didn't repeat the cycle for ourselves. And
wait, to interrupt you real fast. Can
yeah.
you share with everyone how long you guys have been together to give them just a timeline of when you started this conversation?
Yeah, so we've been together 11 years. We got together right after our freshman year of college where we met. And then we got married after 5 years. Married after 6 years. We've been married 5 years in November. So
amazing.
Yeah, thank you. It's been quite the journey because when you get together at 18, there's a lot of growing up to do, and you constantly are choosing to choose each other to grow with along the way because, those are really formative years. Like, you are becoming like an adult and becoming independent, and to choose to go through that with somebody, that is a journey. And so in preparation for us to then become parents, we knew our marriage had to come first. So growing up, what I was shown was that you put the kids first. And by putting the kids first, I mean this in a way that, like, I am going to run in my parenthood journey. In no means am I shaming or saying it's wrong to put the kids first. But at the end of the day, the kids need to see a strong marriage so that way they feel secure in themselves. And that way you guys can continue showing up for them. It's almost like you can't pour from an empty cup. And so if your marriage isn't strong and united, then your kids are going to suffer. And so in my personal opinion, if you put the kids first and you put the marriage second, there might be some like breakage. And I try to say that as politely as possible and with so much love for people just doing the best that they can in their scenarios. But for Ian and I, and witnessing 2 divorces, and in Ian's case, 3 divorces, we just didn't want to repeat that. And so we chose to do it slightly different.
No, I think I can speak from the position of not having a spouse now, and coming also from divorced parents, and making the decision that I made to no longer be with my ex-husband, and wanting to actually break the cycle. I know that Lincoln, who's my son, needs to see a different reality. And the reality is they repeat what they see. And there's a study out, and honestly, I couldn't find it. So like, maybe I'm totally off and whatever, but I had read this in a book and a ton of my therapy and courses that I had done. But your first 7 years of life are usually the most formative and the most sponge-like. Your brain is the quote unquote sponge-like. And so in the first 7 years, you are going to lay the foundation of how you believe life and humanity functions. And so, like, even knowing that, on the fact that you guys were like, cool, like we're going to make sure that we're good so they're good. Because I can even think of my parents. My parents didn't divorce until I was 16. You're the same, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can remember in like first grade watching my parents argue. And I remember, for some reason in my mind, I connected arguing and divorce. Who knows even where I learned what divorce was so young. But I remember going to school and crying on the playground. And know, like the fire poles, how they like used to do all those tricks and stuff on of it. That was like my jam back then. And I stood up there and I like cried on the pole. And this girl like came up to me. She's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "My parents are getting divorced." And she's like, "How do you know?" And I'm like, "'Cause they argued last night."
No.
And so it's really been interesting to see how much I saw so young. And then even now am with my own son, am taking a stand and being like, no, that dysfunction is not going to continue into you. And we're going to change. And for me, it looked like no longer being with my ex-husband, but for you guys, yeah, I want to hear, give me all the tips and wisdom, because it didn't work out for me on this one, but I have faith that, I'm for marriage. Like, I'm not for the dysfunction that I was in that caused me to be here. I am wholeheartedly, I believe in marriage. I believe in choosing love. I believe in sacrifice. I believe in finding your roles within your dynamic to really function well, whatever that looks like. So give me the scoop.
Well, first of all, for those that don't know Jamie's story, maybe you will one day, and she is incredible. And and you are choosing this journey for the best life for your son. And however difficult it may be to show up every day and go through everything that you're going through, you are an amazing mom for Lincoln. And he is so lucky.
Cry. She says this all the time, and she's just the sweetest friend. You guys need friends like Ari in your life. I'm not even kidding. When we saw each other, it was like, we know we're going to be friends, but I didn't know she's going to be my friend.
And you don't even know it. I was like, you latched onto me. But yeah, okay. So first of all, I also want to jump into this episode and really share, like, we are not the experts when it comes to this. We are just sharing our experiences. And so there are probably some really dumb things I have done along the way in my relationships. And I know that, and I apologize for that if you've experienced any of that.
Same.
But I do think that there are also very healthy things that we have done in our relationships and that we can share. And so, yeah, for Ian and I, we decided to put our marriage first. We knew that date nights were going to be important. We also knew, and this is where we get like into the details that I feel like sometimes can be nerve-wracking to talk about. We were prepared that sex was going to be a little different or going to be on pause for a while. And
okay, not to be TMI, but I'm going to ask this since you went there.
Yes.
Were you guys the always spontaneous couple? Like, whenever one of y'all were feeling it, you did it? Did you guys, since you had been together so long, kind of find a routine? Did one person kind of communicate, hey, I have this expectation, I need it met? You guys, I mean, you don't have to go in detail, but I think that would help a lot of people to kind of understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Mom, if you're listening, just, close your ears because we gave you grandkids. And my mom's friends also, just don't share this with her because I know my mom's friends listen to this. So going into marriage, we had talked about, like, what is our sex life going to be like when we get married? Like, what is important to us? Because we had different mentors sharing with us, like, how often they personally needed to have that connection to have like a strong and healthy marriage for them. And everybody's different. And so I will never throw out a number of how often we have sex. But we communicated that sex was going to be important for our marriage. That's it. It is what it is. And
I mean,
it's healthy.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Like,
I mean, some people, but for us, it is important. And so while I was pregnant, I'm going to jump into a funny story. While I was pregnant, and we had attempted to have sex at one point, we felt like my vagina had closed up. Closed for business. We went to our OB, or my OB, and we asked, like, hey, this is what's going on. It feels like this. And she's like, oh, you might be touching his head.
No.
Oh, what?
I did not know that was even possible.
I didn't know it was either. I thought that was a joke. But I guess because I had two babies and Graham was sitting like really low, that's what she shared with us.
Oh my gosh, that's actually hilarious.
I was shocked. I was like, what? She was like, she was so funny. I loved my OB. She was like, you'll just need to figure it out. And we're like, what?
She's
what?
like, change positions.
I'm like, okay, there's only so many positions I can do when my belly is humongous with these two babies, but okay. So sex looked a little bit different through the rest of my pregnancy. And then afterwards, they give you like, okay, you're clear to have sex at 6 weeks. And Ian's all like,
oh my gosh, that's so funny.
I'm like, I'm terrified.
You're like, remember, your vagina is not safe after having a C-section.
Yes. Yeah. And I couldn't get into my PT for 3 months after giving birth. And so that's where I learned like everything like tightened up. And so we had to do, and my PT had to like open me up again and help loosen the muscles. Because when you have trauma to your abs, your pelvic floor tightens up. Sorry, I feel like we're going a lot about sex tonight, but it is what it is. It's an important topic. Redefining relationships, actually sex.
We'll get to the friendship. If you're in the position like me where you're like, well, that's not relevant at the moment, I think it's still so fascinating. But we're going to get to friendship next. We're going to hit friends and family, but we'll
put it in the show notes when that starts.
Yeah. But this is good stuff. So you guys are like, okay, we know sex was going to change.
We knew sex was going to change. Honestly, I didn't know it was going to change. I just want to like share, like,
be raw.
I thought because I was having a C-section, like it wasn't going to change. So I didn't really learn that it was like physically going to change. I knew like mentally it might be different to have sex when I'm exhausted or like we're caring for babies and we're waking up every 3 hours to feed them initially. But it does get better. Let me tell you that. With a little bit of PT and some practice, it does get better. But we also talked about like when we were going through like these like stints of, not having sex because I was still recovering or it was painful. We had conversations and I was like, hey, like what do we need to do to like have your needs met? Because I don't want you to feel like you're not, like something's missing. And what Ian is so great about is he shared with me, he was like, our intimacy goes beyond like the physical. It's like, I feel so intimate with you because we are so connected right now with what's going on in our life and sharing these beautiful moments. And we are intimate in different ways than just like the physical act of sex. And so that was very reassuring for me. But yeah, that is my little sex talk. I guess if you want more details, you can just DM me because I am not scared to share it.
Watch, your DMs are going to get like flooded of like, oh my gosh, help. Like we're trying to figure it out. I think that is though such a common thing. Like I can only speak from before marriage to marriage of just in your mind, you fantasize a certain reality. And you can even say this of motherhood too. And then reality hits and you're like, well, reality doesn't look like fantasy. So how do we actually do this? And I think a common thread we're going to hear through, relationships with a partner, relationship with friends, and relationship with family is communication. So I think if you like what I'm hearing from Ian is that for him, for you and your guys' dynamic, that yes, you communicated to him that you understand his needs. So on his end, he feels seen, known, loved. And on your end, he also understood where you were at. So you felt seen, known, and loved. And it's that common communication of being able to actually understand, have empathy, compassion, desire, servanthood, sacrifice for each other, for things to actually really look beautiful. And I think I can vouch too. Ari and Ian are a beautiful couple. Like their marriage, one of our other friends, she actually said this to me, and I don't think I ever told you this, but she's like, you just tell they're best friends. Like,
Aww.
it's so obvious. No, it's true. Like, they are just best friends. And so it's really cool to hear. And so I think now you guys the twins are how old now?
7 months.
7 months. You're 7 months in. What would you say is, and I hope this doesn't sound interviewy of me asking all these questions. I just can't speak from it from this point. So I'm just genuinely curious. 7 months in, where are you guys at within your marriage to keep that connection and that intimacy alive?
Yeah, I would say that, first of all, communication is key. Like, over communication is way better than under communication.
Mm-hmm.
Way better. And especially as a female, we have so many words that we need to get out in a day. And if we don't, they roll over.
That's good.
So where we're at is we are very, very blessed that my mom is available to help us with the twins. And so we prioritize date nights and date days and just time for us to like really connect, because we can, touch base and whatnot when the babies are around us, but there's something about it when we can just say like, okay, we're just going to focus on each other, and we try not to talk about the babies, or talk about like the business of like running our family. And we try not to look at the baby monitor, but sometimes we do. And Jamie's been with us when we're like at business meetings and I'm like watching them. But when we're on date nights, these are all things that we really attempt to like just focus in on each other, focus on like us as individuals, us as a couple. And then time outside of that, that's when we can focus on like, what does our life look like running our family as a business? Because we're very proactive with like, how do we run things? So that way there is freedom and spontaneity, that we can do that within those like scheduled blocks. I hope that makes sense. Like, we're not like, here's freedom and fun in these blocks, but it's like we have certain things in place, so that way then
order
we have freedom.
Creates freedom.
Okay, so I hope you guys understood that that is my dynamic, and each dynamic in every marriage is going to be different. And so, Jamie, what about your dynamic? How did you redefine your relationship with your ex-husband?
Yeah. I wish I could probably give more advice. I actually had an amazing phone call today. So I am going to try to honor him the best that I can, because he's still my son's dad. So if you're a single mom, I really encourage and empower you to tell your story, but also think about how it will affect your kids. So I'm going to do to the best of my ability to just say facts. But I am currently in a divorce. So the divorce process is on its way, and we will go to mediation here soon. And I actually had left my husband before we gave birth to Lincoln, or before I gave birth to Lincoln. So 2 months before I gave birth, I had left due to an unsafe circumstance. We tried working things out once he was born, and the continual patterns just showed that the right decision was for me to leave the marriage and give Lincoln another opportunity to see a healthy family, and for me, selfishly, to see that. And so I am learning what it actually looks like to co-parent. It's interesting. I know there's probably a lot of moms that are listening that also are trying to figure out the dynamic of co-parenting. Some people have cordial relationships with their, I don't want to say baby daddy because it sounds so weird, but
Ian hates
their
that
kids,
word.
I hate it. It just sounds like gross. I don't know. I'm like, oh no. But with
I want
Lincoln's
to call
dad,
Ian that sometimes. and he will not let me. He's like,
Okay.
no. And I'm like, okay, I respect that and I honor that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why it just feels like icky,
Mm-hmm.
but for me it just feels icky. But anywho, we're trying to figure out what it looks like to co-parent. Co-parenting, usually you're not in the most fun of situations to be in this position. So maneuvering that is really interesting. One thing that I really do have a firm belief in is that every child has the right to know their parents. So as dysfunctional as our marriage was, it does not give me the right for him not to know his dad. Do I, though, have the right to protect him from certain circumstances, him as in my son? Absolutely. And so I actually had a call with a mentor today who had walked through a similar situation as me, who is now on the other end. She's now remarried, has a beautiful family, has 2 kids, and is walking it out as co-parenting. And he had an interesting circumstance happen and needed someone to process with her. And she just gave me really sound advice is if you can help your kids understand that when they're in your house that they will have no lack and that you can speak highly of the good traits of their parent, that they will see you in a really healthy dynamic. And so I think redefining how I view I shouldn't have said his name. Anyhow, my ex-husband's name is Charlie, because that just came out. People are going to figure out. I mean, you could stalk me on Instagram and you could figure it out. We were married for 5 years, so it's not like anything's a secret. But how I can speak about Charlie's name to Lincoln is really going to set up my house to be really safe and a really beautiful place for Lincoln to grow up. So I think for me, one of the things that I'm really learning as having to co-parent are the specific words that I say around Lincoln, and words, how he sees me interact when he sees us both together. Like, I don't want Lincoln to still see the toxicity that was happening in the house before he was born. I fully believe that he could have felt the stress that was happening in the house before he was born, but I don't want him to see it. And so I could take full responsibility of being kind and cordial and respectful to his dad. Whether he wants to reciprocate that or not, that's not my responsibility. And then 2, just really understanding Lincoln will be okay. And want to even say this to any other single mom that's out there. Like, well, first off, I don't like to classify myself as a single mom, mainly because I don't want to be single forever. So, and maybe you're in that position and
I love you.
Like, you do want to be single forever. Yeah. But like, I'm being honest, I'm for marriage. So like, I don't want to be single forever. Like, I'm going to go through my healing journey. And when I feel the release, like, your girl wants a man. Facts.
And you deserve a man.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
I receive that. Thank you.
I do. I'm like,
good.
That's a good one. I receive. What's it called? Just kidding. I'm not any. But yeah, if you are parenting alone right now, I want to reassure you that your kids will have so much respect and honor towards you, the way they watch you steward that relationship and steward relationships within your home. So even like I'm not there yet, so stay continued and keep listening to the podcast down the line. But when I get to that point of whenever I start dating again, how is he going to watch me respect other men that come in? How am I going to set the standard? Who am I going to give him access to? those are like really big things that I'm really thinking about, because since they are such sponges and so young and lay that foundation at such a young age, these are really things that I value a ton. And so if I can lead by example, I think he's going to have a really good outcome of what relationships look like. And then two, one of the things that these mentors of mine have been saying, they're like, we're not worried about Lincoln. You know, if you're going to worry about Lincoln, he'll have problems, because going back to what you're saying, they're always looking to the parent for guidance. And so their whole thing is, you get healthy, you get healed, and you walk in what you desire for them to see, and they're going to be okay. And so, yeah, that's
children
just how
children are resilient. I just want to share that, because Lincoln is going to be amazing. He already is.
He's a little handball. I'm not worried. And I have so many amazing guy friends that are in my life that Lincoln sees daily, weekly, that he has a really good representation of really strong, amazing men. But I think what's now interesting, like I've learned how to like co-parent. No, haven't learned. I'm learning how to co-parent and how to set that example. I think the harder thing for me as a mom actually has been the friendships, and kind of like circling back to the story that I just shared in the very beginning. Friendships have been so different as a mom, because I'm really now hyper aware of the season that I'm in and the season that these friends are in. And I have friends that have compassion and can meet me where I am as a mom. And I have friends that don't at all. And I've lost some friendships coming into motherhood because they don't understand. And motherhood, as anyone who's listening to this that is a mom knows, and if you're pregnant, you're going to find out really, really soon, or maybe you're getting a glimpse of it, but you just don't know until you know. Like,
yeah, you don't know until you know. And I will say, you didn't lose friends. They're just redefining their relationship with you.
Yes.
And you're redefining your relationship with them.
Yes. I love that.
Because you don't, and I've heard how you handle these situations, you don't just tell people to go away because they're not in your season of life. You invite them in and try to meet them where they're at. And if they can't reciprocate, that is something they have to take responsibility for. And so, but moms get it. Moms, that also, we'll talk about friends. But I think also our relationships with our moms have changed after we became moms, because we're like, oh, this is what I did to you. Hey, I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh. Seriously, for me, I see my mom so differently now. And I'm like, oh. And even to the other night, I live with my mom right now, and Lincoln has become a wiggle worm, and he was like kicking my mom. And I was like, now you know what I go through at night. And she was like, why do you think I don't understand you? She goes, I had 3 kids. I know what it's like. And I was like, oh. And I almost wanted to argue her on it. And then I like kind of just had to like shut my mouth, because I'm like, facts, she's right. Like, I know you and Lola is what you
Filipino grandmas are called.
Are like BFFs.
Yeah. Before we had kids, my mom would joke and be like, will you guys have like a place for me to stay with you when you have kids? And I was like, no, Mom, we need our space. And now, last night, she spends the night sometimes to help us in the mornings and then for the day. I was like, okay, Mom, so we call this your room, but when we have the finances, we will build you like your own space removed from our home, so you still have your personal space and we still have our personal space, but you're right there.
Literally, oh my gosh, like a little back casita.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness. Yeah.
Lola's casita.
Oh, Lola's casita. She's gonna love that.
Shout out
Yeah.
Lola.
I mean, when we have the finances, I'll even just buy her the house next door. Like might as well. I would, you know what my dream would be? Sorry, this is a total tangent. I would love to just like design my own neighborhood and be like, and this friend lives here, and this friend lives here, and this
Oh my
friend
gosh,
lives here,
yeah.
and then this family member lives here. Amazing. That would be so
Do you know what's so funny? Okay, maybe this is also a tangent too, but I feel like today, as in like this day and age, everyone's like, I want to buy a bunch of land and build a ton of homes on it and have a farm and grow all of our own crops and all of that. And I like the idea of being close to my friends. So I love the fact that you said being in a neighborhood, but I grew up on a farm. And like, I don't think anyone actually understands, one, how much work it is, two, how smelly it is, especially like there's a cattle ranch like 3 miles away. And
Oof.
depending on when the wind was blowing, like it smelled horrible.
And on hot days.
Oh,
Ugh.
yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. And like, everyone always jokes like, oh, I did love it. Like, I feel so blessed that I was raised like we ate majority from our garden. We either had cows that we would butcher, or my dad's an avid hunter, so we'd eat whatever my dad shot that season. Sorry if you're a vegan listening to this. This is just my reality. But you only eat, especially with a garden or an orchard, what is produced that year. So every summer, our zucchini would go nuts. We'd have massive zucchini, and my parents would have it every freaking night for dinner. And after you have zucchini like 65 days in a row, you're like, I can't eat this disgusting thing. And like, I don't think people comprehend that of when they're saying, I want to live on a farm and grow all my own food. It's like, well, you better grow a variety of food because you got to eat what's in season. And that's that. There's my tangent. So that is me saying I will not live on a compound on a farm with anyone, but I will live in your neighborhood. I like that neighborhood idea.
Perfect. You can live in my neighborhood. Yeah, I don't plan on ever living on a farm. I think it's cool. I'll come visit a farm. But will I live on one? I can't keep like houseplants alive. So
Yeah,
unless
same.
I'm hiring somebody.
So shout out to those moms with a green thumb who probably would thrive in that atmosphere.
Oh,
We honor you. My
come
best
over.
friend. Yeah, my best friend probably would thrive, and she makes almost everything from scratch. So I will come collect my sourdough, get all my other good stuff, go just get the fresh produce from you, but then I will drive back to my neighborhood and cook it.
Yeah. Yeah. One day we will have a neighborhood that we choose. And yeah, I really do see that because I grew up in a neighborhood that like the whole street was like friends, and we would do like block parties, and it was really fun growing up. And so I think we mirror what has been displayed to us. So maybe that's why I desire that so much.
That's interesting.
Anyways.
Well, it's funny you say that because I also grew up on a cul-de-sac, and all of the women had kids all around the same time. So like my brother had a neighbor that was his same age. My sister had neighbors that were her same age. I had neighbors that were my same age. And I have so many memories. And back then, like our parents used to kick us out. It'd be like, stay on the cul-de-sac, come in when the lights turn on. You're not allowed inside before the lights come on. And like we were that family that like we were the outdoor crazy kids, find an anthill, ride your bike,
Yep. Entertain yourselves. And that's what we want to do for our kids too. That's another reason why we moved down here, was because that's kind of how Ian was raised. Being raised in Laguna Beach with his story's a little bit unique. And we'll share that on another episode. But part of his childhood, he did grow up where he just was like sent to the beach and like, don't come home until dinner time. And here's $5 and survive. And they would play like hide and go seek in the neighborhoods and like run around. I'm like, that sounds so much fun.
So fun.
Anyways, let's get back to redefining relationships. We kind of skipped over friends. So anything that you want to add to redefining friendships or just how you're navigating those right now?
Yeah, I think, and I want to hear yours too, because I know you guys moved. So that's also another way you're redefining a lot of your relationships. For me, since I had that experience prior to having kids, and once I had Lincoln, I would notice myself doing that. So I became hyper aware who I was hanging out with and asked a lot of feedback questions. So I would like temperature questions, feedback questions, however you want to classify it. Um, I would, they would ask like, how was your day? How is this? How is that? And I would share with them. And then I'd be like, do you want to know about my life with Lincoln or do you want to ask just about me? And I would kind of say like things like that to really kind of assess like, are they wanting to connect to me on that level or are they wanting to understand my whole dynamic? And most of the people wanted to know my whole dynamic. Did I have a few who didn't? Totally. Did I have to kind of grieve like, oh, that's a bummer. They're missing out on that part of my life. Yeah, but I accepted the fact that one day I will get to connect with them then. And right now, they're just in a season that they still need the quality of friend that I was to them before in their season of life. So kind of a little bit of sacrifice on like just understanding this season of motherhood isn't as applicable to them. And so I'm going to stay in the common ground of what really is. On the contrary, even like today, I was on a walk with Lincoln, and one of my friends lives on my same street, but a mile down. And so I walked and I called her and, you know, I work for myself. Like we have the collective and then I do my own personal marketing stuff. So my days are whatever I want to make them. And I forget that people have 9 to 5s. So I literally call her and I'm like, what you doing? What's up? How's it going? Out in front of your house. Come say hi. And she's like, I'm on a Zoom meeting. Like, I can't just like get up and leave. Like, you know, and then we just hung out in front of her house until she got off the meeting. And I had to remember, okay, oh yeah, like she's just in a completely different season. And then we got to go upstairs and she loved on my son and she loves my son so much. And I'm so thankful to have friends like that. And she is super excited for when she's in the season of motherhood. But once she would ask me all the questions about Lincoln, I made it a really good point to be like, thank you, like affirming her and seeing me and saying, thank you so much for asking about him. Because honestly, this is all I think about. And thank you so much for this. And then I would reciprocate things and kind of then dig into her season. And she actually had really exciting news. She was like designing an engagement ring. So then I got to go through all of that and be like, sis, how many carrots? Whoa. Like, and hype her up for the season that she's in. But I think that was a huge learning process for me to be able to define that with friends. And honestly, if I'm going to get realistic, I have just gravitated a lot closer to my friends that are moms. And not like I intentionally have done that, being like, I'm only going to hang out with moms. But like we said earlier, like you don't know until you know, but there is an extended grace that other moms can extend to each other because they have the empathy and compassion of having walked through very similar seasons. So my best friend has a son that's 6 months older than Lincoln. And so we're very close in seasons. And we seem to gravitate our time towards each other a lot more because it's so much easier in our day-to-day dynamic to have that connection of, you know, being at the park or talking about sleep, talking about eating, talking about how we're doing. And I have really noticed that with myself. And so, yeah, I think these are just things that I'm just redefining and really assessing in my life of I'm noticing this gravitation and it's totally okay and it's beautiful and it's a season, but I am looking at who are those friendships who aren't in that seasons and how can I be really intentional with them. And so that's kind of where I come at with a lot of it, is a lot of intentionality,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of great question asking, and using the talking skill of affirming that they're listening to you and vice
Mm.
versa. But dang, it's been hard. Like, to say that, I just rattled all that off right now, but that is 8 months of learning how to do that, 8 months of realizing certain things, and am still learning how to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
I
don't know.
mean, every
It's good.
relationship is different. And I think that's why you can't like categorize everything into like labels or boxes, because even if they're a friend without kids, they can receive you differently. Like some are prepared to
Mm.
like meet you where you're at because they're very excited for the season you're in, or they just personally love kids. Um, or maybe they don't plan on having kids and they don't really love being around kids, and that's okay. I have friends all across the board. But I do definitely notice that I gravitate more towards friends that have kids. Um,
Yeah.
because
You guys
you
moved
just,
here.
yeah. Yeah. So we moved down here last year. In October, I was 6 weeks pregnant at the time, had no idea it was twins. And we essentially had to start over with like our community. Even though Ian grew up here, a lot of his friends had moved, and we had always desired a strong community. And if you know Ian and I, and you've known us for the past, I don't know, for our entire relationship, essentially, we love making friends, and we will make friends everywhere we go because we just
They're
see
great
people
at
where
making
they're at.
friends.
And I laugh because if you came to one of my baby showers, people are like, "Oh, how do you know Ari? Oh, how do you know Ari?" And it's like, "Oh, I met her at Whole Foods in like a random aisle. Oh, I met her at the farmer's market. Oh," like, so yeah, when we moved
Yeah.
down here, we were just desiring friends. And I was pregnant. We had made some friends along the way. And then when I gave birth, the first mom walk I attended, the babies were 3 months. And that is where I have made a ton of our friends, including Jamie. And also, I have to shout her out. One of my good friends just became a new mom, and I'm excited for her to attend some mom walks. But I was in her chair as she was doing my hair. That rhymes. And found out that she went to high school with my husband. Like, she went from kindergarten to high school.
No.
Yeah, Laguna Beach is a small town. So found out they had gone to school their entire lives. And then we reconnected, and she's been amazing because she just like invited me into her circle of friends. And so we never felt alone when we moved down here, which was very, very nice. It felt like, okay, we belong here, in this season of our life.
Okay, that's actually crazy. It's crazy how small the world really is, but it's really fun. I think if you're listening to this, and this is actually a perfect segment to close, and you're like, dang, I have had to redefine a lot of friendships, or I don't actually have the family support. So maybe you guys don't have a Grandma Perry or a Lola. Maybe you don't have a partner, whatever it may look like, and you are dying and searching for a community. That is essentially why I created the collective. I haven't gone in depth really of people have heard some things, but I created the collective because I was going through this divorce and I wanted people to talk to that didn't know my story. They didn't like prejudge me or didn't want to talk about the hard stuff of my relationship. I really just want to talk about being a mom. And there's something freeing of being able to be known and being loved and being accepted through the trials of what motherhood brings, because it's a lot and it's different for everyone. And I don't know one mom that has not had some form of hiccup, meaning breastfeeding or sleep or regular feeding or illness or whatever challenge motherhood brings hormones, anxiety, depression, family loss, conflict, whatever it may be. Life and death bring those things out of people. And so, especially bringing life in, you need that support because you need your village to help walk it out with you. So that is why we have the Mom Walk Collective. So if you are listening to this and it's almost tasting a little sour in your mouth, we want to be that solution. So we encourage you, find a walk near you. If you are trying to figure out how to find a walk, go to the momwalkcollective.com, go to a walk finder, type in your zip code, find the one closest to you. If you don't have one near you, please email us at the contact form on our website as well. Or if you're like, you know what, I'm great at building community, but I'm just in a new environment or a new place and I can host it. I'd love to meet new people. Please fill out our ambassador forms and we will help create community with you. So we just want to thank you guys for listening to this. If there's anything that you guys disagreed with or is sour in your mouth or whatever, know that this is just coming from our personal experience. It's coming from love. We don't want to offend you in any way. We'd love your guys' feedback. So please review, leave comment. Am I missing anything? Ari, close this out.
Yeah, DM us if you have any topics that you want us to cover. We are so excited to be able to just serve you guys where you're at. If we're able to see you in person, amazing. We love you. If we're able to be your virtual village, we love you too. And we want to hear from you, whether that is through our DMs, through our contact page. We want to get in contact with you and hear what you have to say. So we love you so much. And we look forward to sharing our next couple of episodes, which are going to be ambassadors. And this is going to be a new piece that we're adding. So we will be doing our regular podcast, and then we'll be adding in ambassador podcast episodes as well. So you'll hear from us 2 times a week now. So we love you so much. And
we love you, Mama.
We'll see you soon.